Welcome back to the third chapter in the Mindset series. Now, off the back of the last activity in the previous chapter, I hope you have this great, big, unapologetic representation of future you. Because now what we want to do is take this idea, take this future representation and all of the success that she brings with her and turn it into something clear, bite-sized, and attainable. Something that you're going to be working towards for the next 12 weeks. This brings us to our SMART goal setting session. So, what are they? Let's start there. I'm sure you've heard this acronym thrown around many a time. Here's a little bit about how and why they work. Firstly, we want to make sure we set goals that are specific and stretching. Vague goals lead to vague attempts to achieve them, while on the other hand, goals that challenge us within reason and as long as the right support is present lead to higher rates of successful attainment. Next, we want to be able to measure our goals. We need to be able to evaluate our progress in order to identify where we are in the goal setting process. This is really important in facilitating objectivity. We also want to make sure that our goals are attractive. If we don't want it, we're unlikely to put in a sustained effort, especially when the goal is challenging or set over a longer period of time. We then want to make sure we're being realistic. We must be capable of achieving the goal, whether it be skills, time, physical resources, as well as our own self-efficacy or belief that we are able. And finally, we want to be clear on a time frame. We need to have an appropriate time frame in mind, and further, we need to be aware of the minimum time commitment required in order to be successful. Now, let's put all of this into practice. So before your next coaching session, you're going to use the SMART framework to come up with your own goals for the next 12 weeks. You'll be able to find this written down in your workbook. So firstly, if you're unsure of where to begin, I want you to ask yourself some of the following questions. What is it that you want to get out of the next 12 weeks? Why is it so important to you? What will it give you that you don't already have? How will it contribute to your life now, in 6 months, in 3 years? And finally, and most importantly, I think, if you didn't do it, what would you stand to lose? Now, assuming that you have a goal in mind, it might just be the one, or perhaps you have a few complementary goals working side by side. What I want you to do now is run through the following questions for each separate goal. Fill each section in as much detail as you possibly can, because the more detailed and the more specific you can be, the more detailed our subsequent action plan can be off the back of it, with far greater impact on success. Again, you'll be able to find this on your worksheet. Firstly, I want you to ask yourself in as much detail as possible, what is the outcome that I want? Then I want you to think about how specifically you're going to measure this outcome. How will you know when you've achieved it? Will it be a scale weight? Will it be body measurements? Maybe it's less tangible, like increased confidence or self-belief. And if so, how will this show up for you when you're successful? Then let's talk about why this goal attracts and captures you. Why is it so important for you to achieve this particular goal? What will you gain? What will you be moving towards? What part of your future vision will it be tapping into? Perhaps even bring it back to your values. What priorities does it align with in your life right now? All right, when you've done that, let's move on to think about how realistic this goal is for you to act on right now. Do you actually believe that you're capable of achieving it? Is there anything at all that might get in your way? And if yes, what can you proactively do about that? Are there other options or ways around? And finally, let's now talk about time frame and resourcing. What resources do you need and what resources do you have at your disposal? For example, how much time do you need to set aside each week to make this possible? Do you have this much time available? And if not, what can you do about it? What other resources might you need to make this work? All right, now you've filled out all of that, let's move on to clarifying your goal. So when you've answered everything and you have a really strong idea of what you want for the next 12 weeks, I want you to go ahead and put each of the goals you've outlined into a single clear sentence. Let me give you a quick example. My aim for the next 12 weeks is to make significant improvements in my fitness, strength, and overall well-being in an enjoyable, sustainable manner, the success of which will be demonstrated by my increased levels of energy, sleeping through the night, better performance in the gym, and reducing my weight by 4 kilos. All right, your turn. You'll find space to write these down in your workbook. You might want to create a few different variations. And now don't worry if you think they're not perfect or final, because I want you to bring them to your next coaching call with Nat to workshop them until you're absolutely happy with them. All right, goals and language. Now, there have already been a few activities in this session. Most of them are for you to go away and do on your own. But before I let you go, I want to talk about why it's important to be mindful of the language you use around your goals while you're setting them. Firstly, a note on framing. Think about the language you're using when you're setting your goals. Are you moving away from something for fear of the negative consequences, otherwise known as avoidant goal setting? Or are you moving towards something that will add a positive change to your life? These are known as approach goals. Secondly, the impact of positive language. Now, while fear of negative consequences is a strong motivational driver for some, using positive language in your goal setting can be really influential as to how you internalize your goal. And those goals that you feel positively about are the goals you're more likely to continue striving for when things get tough. And finally, are you in it for the journey or the destination? So while there's nothing wrong with setting goals to achieve a specific outcome, when addressing the complexities of behavior change, we know that the goal won't necessarily be straightforward, often leading to moments of, why am I doing this? So when done properly, setting yourself a process goal alongside an outcome-driven goal can help engage you in the process that often leads you successfully to your desired outcome. And when you enjoy the process, it makes sense that you're far more likely to keep at it. Okay, I think that's probably more than enough for you to be getting on with. Remember to have your goal setting done before you jump on your next coaching call with Nat. But if you have any questions at all in the meantime, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'll see you next time when we start getting stuck into some serious planning.